Hello, Internet! I'm HamsterBomb.
I'm Zach.
And this is the second part of a show that you probably should have watched the first part for if you don't know what's going on. This is HITBOX, the gaming podcast where we talk about video games, and we are going through gaming history, looking at some more games that came out in 1999. You don't necessarily need to see the first episode first. It's not, I was kidding. This is really just looking at a bunch of other games that came out this year that we didn't even get to squeeze into that last monster of an episode. We're going to try and comfortably get through them this time.
We're going to be lucky if it's under an hour.
We're going to... I'm sorry, there's too many things we want to talk about.
Well, that's just it. Like I said in an earlier episode, like back in 97, 98, it's just going to get worse and worse for time.
Yeah, and
because
the only
so
thing
much comes out.
Right, and I think the only thing you need to know going into this is obviously Roller Coaster Tycoon came out this year, and I am going to be playing this while we discuss the games that came out in this episode.
Exactly.
Currently, we are looking through games on the PlayStation 1, and we've got a really cool set of RPGs, and I want to say set because I kind of want to, like, quickly go through these, and like none of them I really want to really dissect, and they're not like enormous game changers, even though they're big titles.
No, yeah, exactly.
You know,
like even in the RPG space, they're really not that innovative, I don't think.
How about the first one we talk about is actually one of Kim's favorite video games, Legend of Dragoon.
Legend of Dragoon. Oh my goodness, what a
good
game, actually.
So Legend of Dragoon is an RPG for the original PlayStation that was actually kind of a standout, doing its own thing, and it was really interesting. I think the only thing that really didn't stand out with the game was its story. I still, like, it's just kind of very by the books and basic, and that's fine, but the gameplay is what's so interesting. The graphics are so cool for the first PlayStation. Man, even the cutscenes, the pre-rendered stuff, the music, it's all very, very well done. But let's just go to the gameplay. Let's talk about the good stuff. We don't have time for the bad stuff.
Yes. No, not yet.
It's not even bad stuff. It's just like...
No, it's a lot of nitpicks.
Mess.
And mess.
Yeah.
So the thing that I want to say that makes this game unique is the battle system.
Absolutely.
Which I think Paper Mario...
It's Paper Mario.
Yeah. Only it's more complex than Paper Mario.
It's like Super Mario RPG, action-based stuff, if you don't know what he meant by that. So, like, you're timing your button presses, you see, like, prompts coming on screen to time it better. I was picking on Shenmue last time for this, for not doing quick commands correctly. This is how you do it. You want to integrate it with the gameplay in a way that you feel satisfaction of doing it, and if you fail it, it's not like, game over! That sucks!
So they're called additions in this game, and each and every character has a unique set of additions they learn as they level up. So Dart, your main hero, starts out with a double slash, which every time your character completes an addition, they always shout the name of that move like it's a Super Sentai show, like Power Rangers. Double slash! It's like, thanks, buddy, that's what I just selected.
This isn't exactly like that. You've played this game a lot.
Yes, I have. I love this game, dude. This was my childhood. This is honestly my first big RPG, this and Golden Sun, The Lost Age.
It's an outstanding game. But
yes. So like you have to time the X button to a square that's going into another square, and when they overlap, you hit the button.
It's a cool visual thing.
Yeah, it's a nice visual indicator, and each one will net you what's called, I believe, spirit points for your dragon transformations. Because each character you play as, spoiler, but it's part of the whole game. Your characters
also, it's not like you're going to go out there and buy it for your PlayStation 1, because I'm pretty sure there's no other way to buy this. I don't even think it came on the PlayStation Classic.
It did not. Even though it was a Sony-developed thing, it was from Japan Studio.
I don't understand that.
I don't either, but regardless,
whatever.
So each of your characters are special in the fact that they have a dragon orb, which allows them to transform into dragon warriors or dragoons. So the more you can build up your special meter, because there's 5 different levels as you level up, and however many meters you fill up means how many turns your character can stay in dragoon form. And they're super powerful. They can cast magic spells, which can just decimate your opponents. And they each have their own different additions on top of the ones that that the characters can use in human form. And that's I think the coolest part about the whole thing is just the transformations and the battle system.
Yes.
Now, the one thing
it's cinematics and
it's
even though it's not as memorable, boy is it cool to see.
Yes. Now
and it was standing out on the PlayStation.
Sure. Yeah. Now, the one thing that I think kind of knocked it down a peg for some people back in the day, this game was advertised as the Final Fantasy game. And anytime you try
well,
to
that
tell...
kind of advertising back then. 90s was just very insulting with its advertising.
Yes.
Just look up some 90s ads and you'll know what I'm talking about.
Daikatana.
Sega does what Nintendo don't. It's a big one.
Get in or get out.
Get in or get out.
That's neither here nor there. But it's like back then, though,
Whatever.
when you say that you're a Final Fantasy killer, you have to bring it. And for a lot of people, the game didn't quite do it.
No, even though, ironically, and this is a good transition, Final Fantasy VIII comes out this year.
Yes.
And I think Legend of Dragoon's a better game.
I do, too. I think that Dragoon sticks to enough traditional mechanics.
We'll be complete hypocrites and just backtrack on that.
Yeah.
But to justify why, it's, I think all the cool things that Final Fantasy could do on the PlayStation 7 did.
Yes.
And 8 was just like baby steps in the next direction. I don't think its story was quite as good.
No.
It's fine, but I think like 9, it's really gonna figure it out, and then like 10 is back to doing basically what 7 did and blowing people's minds with new hardware.
Yes.
And Final Fantasy is gonna continue being what it was, and 8 is. A lot of people look back on this one and like it.
Yeah.
It's not a bad game at all.
No, absolutely not. But I think it just tries to do things differently for the sake of just being different.
Yeah.
Whereas Dragoon sticks more to more traditional and proven JRPG mechanics and tropes to make it feel not only familiar but engaging. Because with 8, you have so many new mechanics that you kind of have to wrap your mind around and unlearn decades of what Final Fantasy has taught you how to play their games with, that you just sit there and think, what's the point of all this? And yeah, sure, the character models are smoother. You don't see the joints as easily on these new models. However, since they're going for a more stylized realism, when you go into their overworld models, they don't look that great. Even back then, like the faces, you can see the seam where like one half of the face has gone up and the other's gone down, like they've had a stroke. And it's like, but it's still a fine enough game. And I still think it's worth playing because of the different storylines, the different perspectives that you actually get in this game.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that it tries to mix science fiction and fantasy. Yeah. That's really cool. But
Doom Train didn't need to happen.
No. Absolutely not.
But still, just to fly through the RPGs really quick, I can, just to justify those marketing, I could see why somebody in hindsight might think that Legend of Dragoon might be a breakout Final Fantasy killer. Not a polite way to phrase it at all, but considering what FF8 was doing at the time, but still, person writing that would have the responsibility of knowing that they had played previous Final Fantasy games and should have shut up.
Yep.
But chose not
and then
to.
9 comes out later and blows.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
Blows everyone out of the water, not blows. That's not what he was trying to say. FF9 blows everybody out of the water.
Had you fooled.
Got you there.
But since we want to move on, because there's not much more I want to add to.
I'm charging $2 for this haunted house. Screw that, man.
Yeah, $4.
$4.
Yeah, $4.50. Hey, as long as
Can I hear $4.50?
Can I have $4.50? How about $4.75?
I'm just charging more money everywhere.
But in order to move on a little bit more,
a ton of cash. We don't need to do that.
Let's also, excuse me, losing my voice. Let's move on to Chrono Cross.
Chrono Cross is another game that was not on your list before we started this, and I was like,
no. Well, because
it's another one of those games that's like, it's important. It's another big RPG, but at the same time, like, it's not really a Chrono Trigger sequel, which it is the same universe. How do I? In the sense that Final Fantasy is.
Kind of.
Kind of.
Yeah, like, it doesn't tie as much into Chrono Trigger as I think it should have.
I absolutely wish it would have.
Yeah, but then again, I guess their mindset was they would just be making Chrono Trigger again for the PlayStation.
I kind of see that.
But it's like...
I would have definitely loved it.
Right, but again, let's get the good out of the way.
Yeah, let's.
It's a beautiful game.
And it's a game that you can actually play today.
Yes, the Radical Dreamers edition. Pick it up because it comes with the Radical Dreamers visual novel that we never got in the States for the Super Nintendo. Which is really cool. And it actually ties in better the gap between Trigger and Cross, which is really nice. But
I appreciate that.
Chrono Cross is an absolutely beautiful game.
Yes.
I still think even now, even with the poor upscaling that they kind of did with this remake, with this port, and also too, I love the fact that you see the enemies on the overworld. You don't have, and this is something rare for JRPG back then, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You don't always see everything on the screen back then. Here, you can, and you can choose what you fight and what you don't fight. The battle system is interesting. There's a certain amount of AP you get per character, and you get like 3 different attacks. Like if you do a basic attack, you can choose where to hit or how hard you hit, whichever. And it determines your percentage to actually hit the creature you're fighting, which adds a lot of strategy. Like, do you hold back and build up something in order to cast a spell, or do you just hope everyone gets their super special moves out and just run over everything in your path with it? That part's fun. And the dual world setup that they have going on, really cool.
Yeah.
Like, actually seeing, like, your character go from the world that he knows and grew up in to the world that's familiar, but it's completely different. That is a really cool concept. But it's not what I think Chrono Trigger really was more about.
No, that's the thing. How do you do Chrono Trigger a second time?
You can't.
Exactly.
That's the problem. So they did the best that they could.
Yeah, they did.
And it's still a good game.
I wish it didn't end the series, if you can call it a series.
No, well, they only said they would make a new one if they could get the Dream Team back together, even though the Dream Team wasn't exactly just the Dream Team by themselves, but it was for marketing purposes.
Yep.
But still, pick it up. It's like, what, $20 on Switch, 25?
It's not bad at all.
It's not terrible. Yeah, please pick it up. You will love it if you love JRPGs. So
yeah, there was quite a lot of them that were really amazing this year. So that's why we wanted to, like, go through them really quickly, even though originally none of those 3 were on our list to discuss, and I know our problem already was that we needed to chop down stuff on here, but they're really big. You know, we're getting to the point now in games where a lot of really big things are coming out constantly, and it's kind of hard for us to, like, just sweep through a year and say, oh yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, because I was not originally going to include Chrono Cross, because I think Chrono Trigger is the game to talk about if we want to talk about a Chrono game.
Absolutely, but if we're going to say the RPGs, like, we should mention that it happens here, and this is kind of the end of it, and it is part of its story.
It is, and again, it kind of ties things together, but again, it's just, I would say go in with your expectations in check.
Yeah.
You know, not low, because it's a Squaresoft game from the 90s. You're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say, I would still say it's good. Moving away from JRPGs now, I think we should get back into horror for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
We should probably talk about Resident Evil 3.
Yes, just a bit. This was another one we were not going to put on our list, mostly because 3 isn't really doing too much that we didn't see in Resident Evil 2.
Right, because it was made to fulfill a contractual obligation with Sony.
And it's really even reusing a lot of the same assets. It's in the same setting. The story's very similar. It's just from different perspectives.
Yes.
More so, the thing that we wanted to discuss here is that this is where people are getting the term Nemesis system. They're talking about Nemesis, the monster that will follow you around as you try and explore Raccoon City.
Yep, he is a cool zombie in a trench coat, and all he says is, Stars. And
Stars.
He was created by Umbrella to take down any witnesses to their shenanigans.
God,
and
so stupid.
It is,
but I love it.
But he gets a rocket launcher and a flamethrower, so what more can you ask for?
Exactly.
So yeah, the whole point of the game is that you're playing as
water tricycles.
Yay! Wow, what kind of version of the game were you playing? That sounds pretty cool.
Water tricycles.
No, but it's you're playing as Jill Valentine in this one, and the story takes place before/during Resi 2, and then after Resident Evil 2's story. And so it kind of already makes it a little weird, but you're trying to escape Raccoon City. You've been cut off from Stars. You don't know anything, and the Nemesis has shown up, and he has shown. The game shows you right away that this guy is nothing to mess around with. Like, your helicopter pilot from the first game who just kind of left y'all for dead.
Yeah.
He tries to help you get out because he still has his pilot's license, but the Nemesis comes up, takes a tentacle out of the palm of his hand, and rams it through this dude's head, turning him into a zombie. And you're just like, okay.
Okay.
So, the thing that I like about this game is that he comes up at different points in the game, and in this one versus the remake, which I find really odd, he actually can show up in any room at any time.
Yeah.
which
I don't know why. Yeah, I guess they wanted to be more scripted.
That's exactly it. But
There's boss fights and stuff.
Yeah,
but that wasn't the point.
No, there are pre-scripted events in the original game where you are given choices of how to try to get away from him or to debilitate him enough to escape and get away from him for a few screens.
Yeah, and it kind of like made the game stand out and be so different from 2.
Exactly.
And now we actually mentioned earlier, if you remember, in Clock Tower, this system has already existed.
Yes.
So this is once again another one of those things where gaming terms are going to evolve from the most popular thing at the time that people resonate with. Like, first-person shooters at this time period are called Doom clones.
Yep.
Okay? So we don't even have that term yet. That's at least one happy ending for genre titles in video gaming, but Nemesis system is still something we call today, and if anything, it...
Which you would probably be familiar with, like I said.
What should you call, like the little rat guy with the scissors?
Oh, Scissorman.
Scissorman.
Scissorman, yes, I love the Scissorman, that little creepy child-looking dude.
Yeah, it should be a clock tower system, not a tyrant or a...
Yeah.
Yeah, Nemesis system.
Right, which eventually we would still get, especially at the forefront in the Resi 2 remake, because he was only available in, like, the B side of those scenarios in the original. He wasn't that big of a thing in the original Resi 2, which I think is for the best.
I love what they did with the remake, though.
Yes, exactly.
I love that remake. So yeah, we don't have time for that. Anyway, so in that horror vein, though, a great time for us to tangent into another PlayStation horror game.
Which we will probably discuss a bit more.
Yes, we'll probably spend more time on this one. Dino Crisis.
Dino Crisis. Alex, that's disgusting.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
We were playing this a little bit together on, I don't know how we already broke this, the stereotype here. Okay, so I put it on my PlayStation Classic if it wasn't already modded. I don't even think it came on there naturally, which is another one I don't understand. Why? Whatever. So still, we're playing a bit of that just so because we love playing old games together, and unfortunately, it's so hard to actually just go back and play these old games anymore. But anyway, yeah, this game is still in that same Resident Evil age where the script and the voice acting is kind of bad, but it's funny how bad it is. So like, the protagonist uncovers like some brutally mutilated...
Oh, this dude is eviscerated.
Yeah, he's like barely a human on the floor, and like, was it her or was some guy with her?
No, it was she. She said...
Yeah, okay, she walks up and just goes, "That's disgusting." Well, it's how we read it, but of course...
Yeah. Well, that's
but like her motions, yeah, it's the way it comes across. It's just weird, but still, a lot of great cinematics with this one too.
Yeah,
the gameplay, it really does play just about as good as we have with like Resident Evil at the time. The fixed camera is still kind of a problem, but that's just a thing. It was a solution, and nobody was really able to program like a new engine to solve the system.
Right. Well, and consoles at the time wouldn't have been able to properly do a free-roaming 3D world.
Yeah, like Silent Hill we mentioned last time, kind of, almost, it goes back and forth. Like the camera will follow you at moments, but it will not at moments.
Right, it doesn't allow you complete camera control like we're used to now, and what we would eventually get with the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. Yeah, the thing I like about it is its goofy premise, because it's just basically capitalizing on everybody's love for Jurassic Park, which was huge in the 90s. Like, you guys don't even know how big it was. Yeah, the
Jurassic World is nothing to what Jurassic Park was.
Like, have you even seen the new Jurassic World movie? Dominion or whatever it's called.
Not the newest one. I think I saw. How many are there now? 3?
There's like 3 Jurassic World movies.
I've seen the first one a few times. I've seen the second, I think, once in theaters, and that was it. I was kind of like,
oh, you've seen more than I have then.
I was like, I'm done.
Because
it's not the same thing.
No, it's absolutely not. But
dinosaurs were huge, is what we're trying to get at here.
And also physically big as well.
Yes, and physically large. Don't you love physically large dinosaurs?
And I love the fact that they were trying to use dinosaurs as a reminder that these guys were animals, right? They were there to hunt and eat, and they were predators, like some of them, like the T-Rex, the Velociraptor. Granted, we were using the false versions, or like the inaccurate versions, but who cares?
Whatever.
There's a Velociraptor that's the height of you who's jumping over fences to try to get at you. That's terrifying.
Dinosaurs.
So, you know, it's a lot of environmental puzzle solving. It's a lot more action-focused, I think, than Resident Evil 1 or 2. Like 2 has a bunch of action in it, but nothing like Dino Crisis, where you have to fend these creatures off so much. There's environmental puzzle solving, there's switches you have to pull, there's fuses you have to fix, there's things you have to move. It's still Resident Evil in that regard, and it's still fun. It's still really cool trying to undo the puzzle box that is this game.
I have a lot of fun with it too. And more recent news, if we're gonna try and tie this into somewhat of recent news. I don't know about you, Zach, but I was particularly peeved with Capcom making their new. They showed off, I don't remember what this was, E3 or something, I think it was just last year, this new, like, horror dinosaur game. And everyone's coming out and they're shooting, and we're like, oh my god, Dino Crisis is back! Yes! And then there's some different title, and everyone's like, what are you doing?
What?
Why would you not just call it Dino Crisis?
What be this?
Like, there's no justifiable reason. Like, I don't care if you change the game up radically.
No.
I cannot think of a justifiable reason why you would want to change that when you own Dino Crisis. It's like they don't even know what they have. Like, I feel like Sega does this a lot lately.
Dino Crisis 3 jumped the shark like a bunch of good movies did back in the 90s, 2000s, went to space, and it wasn't that good.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Dino Crisis
Mario did the same thing, but then he made Odyssey, and that's probably the best 3D platforming game ever made.
Yeah, I would not argue with you on that.
I did not see that coming.
But anyway, Dino Crisis, it's still got a lot of jank. There's moments where I would have needed a guide to get through. Like, I think there's the one bit in, like, the office where the Tyrannosaurus, like, smashes his head through the glass. You figure you could try to run around it because it looks like there's enough space, but then he'll just, like, lunge forward and still grab you and eat you. So it's like, oh, then what do I do? And you're supposed to, like, shoot it enough times for it to go away, and then it's like, oh, then... But that, again, is just a thing you have to get used to with older console games or PC, whatever. I'd still say it's good. Give it a shot. You know. Anything else you wanted to add about Dino Crisis? Because you're the one who completed it. I still have yet to really get through it.
You think I completed it?
Didn't you?
No, I'm not done with it yet.
Never mind, okay.
Dude, I've been playing way too many things. I've been discovering too many things lately, too.
Oh, I know, like Shin Megami Tensei.
Oh, and Dark Souls.
And Dark Souls.
There's too much. It's too much, Zach.
So why don't we ship, Jump Ship.
Who are we shipping?
We're shipping...
I'm sorry, this is not that kind of show.
We're shipping Super Smash Brothers with Dino Crisis.
Yeah, now we are jumping to the N64. I love the N64, but yes,
I do too.
I need to clarify that this is a very huge, big deal. Now, I know we've mentioned this before, and we'll always preface, like, oh, the series is huge. You guys obviously have heard of Super Smash Brothers. I don't know how you could have not heard of Super Smash Brothers.
Maybe.
But I think it is possible. I do not know you.
Yeah.
But still... I think that this is just one of the most influential games ever made.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because of the fact that this game alone, being what will later be called a platform fighter, and I'm glad it's not a Smash Brothers clone. I hated that while we called it that. Clearly, you can tell what
we still have
how we feel.
We still have roguelike and Souls-like, which should be completely different.
And Metroidvania, that's the one that I hate the most. Yes. But still,
regardless.
Anyway, this is now a series that is very comfortable for people to jump in. It's kind of like a couch co-op party game, which we do not really have at this point. We're gonna get there in a bit.
Yeah, it's a party fighter, basically. It can be deep enough to where it could be like a competitive fighter, which it is. A lot of people have made it as such. However, if you just want to goof off, you can't really do that as well with something like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter or Soul Calibur. Not as easily, at least.
No.
But that's what I love about Smash Bros. Now, again, this is the first in the series.
And, I'm sorry, I didn't even get to what I was trying to say before about why it was so influential. Aside from it being very easy and approachable for people to play, people are now being introduced to new things they've never seen before. Because this is probably the first big crossover game.
Yes.
Even though at this point it is effectively Nintendo and HAL Laboratories being buddy-buddy and just sharing pretty much whatever they've got and throwing it to the works, because the original prototype of this game was fine. It was just like stick figures smacking each other, playing King of the Hill. And how do you make that interesting? Well, you know, Masahiro Sakurai, the brilliant man that he is, says, let me just start putting in some Nintendo characters, and we'll pitch it to them later and see what they think.
Yeah, and if they want us to change it, then we'll change it. They're not gonna. There's no way they're gonna say, "Let's do this." Mm-hmm. They said, "Let's do this."
They said, "Let's do this."
And Mr. Sakurai-san is like, "What?"
Yep.
I mean, okay.
Let's do it. Okay. All right, we're in. I'm game.
Gosh.
So yeah, and that's a very roundabout way of how that happened. But still, after this point, this series now erupts, which alone makes its own genre. It's going to take a long time before we're going to start getting clones of this. Probably like the Melee to more like Brawl days.
I'd say
I think the PlayStation was the first one that we got that was a clone, and people ripped on it for being a clone. If that came out today, where people are much more approachable to it as a genre, I bet that would take off. But we'll get there when we get there. That's another tangent. That's a tangent. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done it. But still.
Well, we've got more time. This is part 2. We can take a little bit of extra time today.
Yeah, right. We're already more than halfway. Anyway. So, it's something that's introducing people to a lot of new games. Fun fact, I did not know who Samus was until I played Super Smash Bros. On the N64 in my cousin's house.
Nice.
Yeah. So I was over there, I was like, oh my gosh, Pikachu is in your game. And Yoshi, I love Yoshi. Oh, I can make people eggs. Pikachu can do electric attacks. That's so cool. Mm-hmm. And they were like playing with Fox. I'm like, I don't know who that is. Why does that guy have a gun? I don't want him shooting guns at Pikachu. They're like, it's blaster guns. It's not the same. I'm like, okay, fine.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you got Mario. I don't know who Mario is. There's Donkey Kong. And like, it was so cool. And then the fact that you could unlock new characters. There were stages based on them. New music for them.
Yep.
All of it is just like, for people who know what that stuff is, it's just like a wonderful happy place feeling, and you get to play a game that in itself is very fun and faithful to what all those games are.
Yep.
And it's a wonderful thing for people who don't know who the new characters are.
Right, because then they can discover potentially new favorites.
Yeah, so you get a character like Ness you just unlocked by doing some extremely hard... I hate unlocking Ness in this game. It's the only one that I have a real problem with. But because I think you have to beat normal level classic with only a 3 stock. Intentionally put your character at 3 stock and not have it continue throughout the whole thing. And typically, you're gonna lose at least 1, maybe 2 stock just at the multi-man smash melee thing at the end of it, whatever it was called back then. Just multi-battle, whatever. The polygons, fighting polygon team. That would beat you up. So beating and getting Ness is really tough in that one. But of course, a lot of people unlock that. They're like, who's that kid?
Yeah.
It was just mostly a Japanese series. We did get the second one, obviously, Mother. We talked about it. But still, it's introducing a lot of people to this. Star Fox, I didn't know what that was. And of course, I started playing it later. And I was like, oh, that was supposed to be that guy from the ship? Like, how was I supposed to know that? That was that guy.
Yeah, right.
Whatever. But still, I think it did a world of good for the industry just because of that alone.
And that's fair.
Anyway, we know what Smash Bros. Is on the N64. Play that game. There's no N64 Classic, so I can't recommend that you actually pick it up anywhere legally and buy the game.
No, you can't, and that's the unfortunate part. Again, thinking of long-running series and just having no way to play the old games, the 3DS,
it's not even on NSO.
No, it's not.
Why did they not even put that on NSO?
Because they don't want it.
It's an online thing. Why'd they do that with GoldenEye? And they let people play multiplayer online. And they didn't do it with Smash Brothers. I'm just now realizing this.
Because they don't want it to compete with Ultimate.
Guys, we need a riot. You think that's going to compete with Ultimate? These people are delusional.
I guarantee you why it's not on there.
I know you're right. I just hate that you're right.
I'm right. But regardless, just Super Smash Brothers, play it whatever way you can. At this point, honestly.
I don't think that the original is so outclassed by the new ones that it shouldn't be played at all. It should absolutely be played.
That's fine, yeah.
It's a wonderful game.
But keeping to the N64 and going monkey mode, we're going to talk about monkey mode.
Full-on monkey mode.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Nana.
You see where we're going with this?
Donkey Kong 64,
Banana Slammer.
Hey, yo.
That was this time.
It is, yeah. It was.
We are Banana Slammer.
We are now Banana Slammer. So.
Yeah, Donkey Kong 64. This was also not originally on our list, and I was like, okay, I'm not even a huge fan of this game.
Right.
It's
not
fine.
Me neither.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, this is the last time Rare is making a Donkey Kong game.
Yeah.
And this is the first 3D Donkey Kong game.
We still have yet to
We still don't have another.
We have a 2.5D platformer in the Donkey Kong Country Returns series.
We have rumors that there's going to be a a Mario Odyssey team developed a 3D Donkey Kong game, but they've been saying that for years, and
I'll believe
it when I see it. Yeah. Exactly. So, yeah.
Yeah, because when I was making this list, my understanding was I don't really want to talk about this because I think Banjo-Kazooie was a bigger deal to me.
Oh yeah, to me too. Yeah, for sure. And I didn't even own Banjo-Kazooie. You had to lend it to me like just a few years ago for me to finally like hands-on play it myself.
Yes.
I only played it at a few friends' houses. So yeah, absolutely. Donkey Kong was more like this is what's happening to. You know what Donkey Kong was when we started this year's series thing? This was Nintendo.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening to this guy. They are basically outsourcing his main game, and then they just let it get bought up by Microsoft and don't care about it ever again. Like the company who they were outsourcing it through, not selling Donkey Kong, obviously. I want to make sure you understand what I was trying to say there.
Yeah. Hey, those British blokes knew what they were doing, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, Rare is outstanding with their games, and they actually had some really crazy ideas in this game. I kind of want to talk, if anything, about Donkey Kong 64. We got to talk about Stop and Swap.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I know this wasn't officially fully implemented into the game, but the concept was the N64 carried enough RAM so that it could actually run whatever game was plugged into it for a short amount of time, even if you took the cartridge out with the game in.
Yeah, because that's what they wanted to do with Banjo-Kazooie, right?
Yeah, they wanted to do it there too, but this is where it's actually in the game and you can find it.
Oh, really? Yeah, see, I just know it from Banjo-Kazooie and 2.
I'm pretty sure you can clip your way into rooms. I could be screwing them up in my head, but I'm pretty sure it's Donkey Kong.
Okay.
But it's still, because yeah, you use like certain, there were supposed to be certain monkey abilities. That's another thing about this one. You actually play as like Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, it's Trixie Kong for some reason, not Dixie, right?
Yeah, Trixie, yeah.
And then Lanky Kong and Chunky Kong.
Yep.
So you have quite a lot to play with of different characters, and they all specialize in different things, and you would need them to get to different areas. But a lot of these areas are intentionally blocked off. You're not supposed to get to them anymore because they didn't. Nintendo heard about this concept of, which I didn't get to finish. Rip out your cartridge really fast and plug in another game made by Rare, like Perfect Dark or something, or Jet Force Gemini, and now all of a sudden you're gonna get some sort of goodie, whatever it is, for benefit for having another Rare game, and then put obviously Donkey Kong 64 back in to continue your game. And Nintendo's like, no! And obviously, as they should have.
Yeah, and the other thing I think too is because the RAM was not cleared in the N64 once you turned it off for like what 5 to 10 seconds, so you had enough time to put it
exactly.
in.
Exactly. Yeah, it was there, but of course people would have freaked and quickly smashed them together, and you can see how this is not going to go well on a cartridge-based system.
And also too, later N64s didn't have that capacity. The RAM was cleared a lot quicker in later N64 models. It's a 3D platformer with legitimately huge levels, like even by today's standards.
They're enormous.
And they're so big that they require teleporters.
Yeah, and it's got a really good camera system, too. Like, coming from Mario 64 was not that long ago. This is a really well-made 3D platformer. I still think Banjo-Kazooie beats it out, one, for being earlier, and two, for, I think, being the superior game, but still, this is Donkey Kong. You know, and that's the fact that I was like, this is really important, and it's dying here. It's kind of like Chrono Cross. Like, I wanted to bring it up because, like, it's dying here. It makes me sad.
Yeah, right.
We're talking about the deaths of some games and Sega as a whole.
Oh, gosh, that's not for another 2 years, thankfully.
But still, how about we move on to another wonderful N64 game that kind of turned into a crazy series that I was not expecting to be big at all. But this is the first, I'm pretty sure, Mario sports game, Mario Golf.
Yeah, it was either this or tennis.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was golf. I'm not positive.
But still, we can talk about
But still, like,
both,
we're still getting Mario Golf games, and even still, this is a good time to talk about Mario Sports, because this is something, on paper, should not work.
Yeah.
This should not work.
It shouldn't be as popular or as good as
No,
it is.
and, now, I've only dabbled a little bit on the N64 one. I've played a lot more of the GameCube Toadstool Tour.
Yeah.
That game is so fun. It shouldn't be fun.
And you know what's surprising? They're made by it was made by Camelot, the RPG guys who made the Shining Force and would go on to make the Golden Sun
that's
games.
another thing that's really important here. This is Camelot.
Yeah, this is after they jumped ship from Sega to Nintendo. It's
Which we should also point out, the creators of Waluigi, all you fans out there. That is 100% a Camelot character.
Yep.
Owned by Nintendo, I think, but
yes,
it's kind of confusing how that kind of works. Like, Like,
Yeah.
is Geno owned by Nintendo because it's a Mario-owned Nintendo game, but it was made by Square Enix? Is it a Square Enix character? I don't know. Masahiro Sakurai absolutely would know because he had to go through this. He's probably the only person who officially knows.
Yeah, right, outside of, like, whoever had to go through the records. But, yeah, so, Mario Golf. Okay, so, how best to describe this? You guys know golf?
Yeah, you play golf, but you're playing with Mario characters. In the Mario Mushroom Kingdom world, too, which is another thing that's kind of interesting. I don't know how far this got into it, but in Toadstool Tour at least, I know there were warp pipes. You would intentionally try and chip into a warp pipe because it would spit you out in a better position. There's enemies sometimes in different places. Sometimes it's just the world being in it. Like the music is nice and ambient. There's just mushroom trees.
Yeah, there's birds.
Princess
chirping.
Peach's castle.
The wind is kind of going.
Or at this point, she's still Princess Toadstool, I think. No, Mario 64 happened. She's Peach now.
Yeah, she was first given the moniker Peach. Yeah, there.
Throwing everybody off.
But yeah, you're basically taking a golf game and adding a lot of sugar and caffeine to it.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more madcap. Not as madcap as it gets in later Mario Golf or Mario Sports games. But still, for the time, I mean, that was okay. The theming really does help. And because of the theming, it like you said, it's able to add new mechanics to make the game interesting. Which I think is really cool. And again, Camelot.
Yeah.
RPG dudes. Sure.
There they go. Did we even get to talk about Camelot?
We talked about Shining Force, yes.
Shining Force, yes. Oh, right, yeah, because we're not at Golden Sun.
No, we're not to Golden Sun yet. That's a couple years out. We're almost there.
Mario Golf, was there anything else we were covering on that? Other than, hey, Camelot, you made a golf game about Mario!
You're still making golf games about Mario.
About Mario and tennis. That's also
Mario.
them.
Where's your other output?
There were other... What?
Where's the rest of Camelot? What's the rest of Camelot's output?
Where is the rest of Camelot? It's one of those companies that I just look at and go, will Nintendo just buy you already so that you can work on this and then do your thing on the side?
Like they did
so to let them expand.
Monolith Soft, yeah.
Yeah, they kinda, sorta.
Yeah, kinda, sorta.
It's...
Anyway, shall we move on?
Yes, we shall.
We shall move on then. Still keeping to the N64, the last one we want to talk about for this year. Mario Party.
Mario Party was also not originally on our list, and I'm like, we got to talk about this. This is the advent of a brand new whole genre of gaming.
Nintendo likes to do that every so often.
I know, and you would think nobody's doing that on the jump to 3D generation other than Nintendo. Nintendo is not just how do we take our old stuff and make it in 3D? They did that, except they looked at Metroid and nah.
The N64.
I'm still mad about that. But no, they make a whole new type of game where they want people to come together and all share an experience with the game itself. They intentionally were we put 4 ports on this thing for a reason. We want a reason for people to want to play with 4 players at one time.
And give us money for extra controllers.
Buy more controllers. Yeah, at the same time, I guess you could call it their greed, however you want to look at this, they made a whole new genre where people are coming over and making a whole new party game genre. And the Mario Party concept is really just a board game where after everyone gets a turn, you play a mini game, go back to the board game, rinse, repeat till there's someone who did enough things, got enough coins, got enough stars, whatever. Yeah. Somebody wins. And usually it's random, and usually you lose friends over it. But that's the name of the game.
Yeah, honestly, though, for a first attempt, Hudson Soft did a good job with this game. Now, not all the boards are bangers, but still, there's still enough cool ideas. Although I get all the N64 Mario parties kind of mixed together.
I do too.
I mean, because
it didn't help that they kind of
looked the
bundle
same.
Mixed them together later. You know what I mean? With the other releases,
like with NSO and the whole all 3 Mario Party games are going to be out on. On the NSO.
Well, that and they also made the top 100, which helped bleed everything together further.
Yes.
There was a whole game they made recently. What was the last one they made that would blended a bunch of the N64 games?
Oh yeah, no, there was I don't remember.
They come out so fast anymore. I can't even keep up with them. What they should be doing is making one good one with DLC packs with more stuff.
Yeah, like they should have done with Super Mario Party, but they didn't.
But unfortunately, it's a money-making scheme.
Yeah, but anyway, so like you said, it's actually fun. The boards are all interesting. You roll a randomly rolling die. You move a couple spaces, and then you are able to, just play some mini games. And it's all determined based on what space you've landed on. If it's a blue space, or if people are on red spaces, you do 2 versus 2, 3 versus 1, or whatever. The one thing that I will say that really kind of put this game into my mind, especially recently, the mini games. Especially seeing as how you're too low.
I know. Well, 10 clips here. That's where I was going.
Okay. But especially seeing as how Nintendo got sued over this game and
they did. They made like their own like little thumb glove things or something. There's a mini game where you have to like do this. Actually, they tried to do something on NSO about this too.
It's the tug of war.
Yeah, the tug of war game.
Yep. So
don't play the tug of war game.
You have to rotate the stick as fast as you can for as long as you can, so that way you can pull the rest of your opponents into a pit of piranha plants.
Yeah.
And then they have to do the same thing. And then with the same thing I think they did with a River Rapids game, where you have to keep rotating the ore with your control stick as fast as possible.
Right.
I swear to God, that game was responsible for more dead N64 analog sticks than anything else.
Yeah, I think it was.
Because it just shaved off so much of the sensor inside.
Yeah, which, I mean, clearly we know how Joy-Con drift works. That's the problem. So, not really recommended.
Yeah, but honestly, if you pick up the new Mario Party, the one that's the compilation of like all the classic boards and classic party games, you'll get a feeling for why these games were popular and why this series got big, especially after the N64 era.
Now you got me paranoid that I'm not going to make it, so I'm trying to like quickly build a bunch of pre-done stuff.
All right, so that's it for the N64. Anything else you wanted to add before we move on to our final item?
I swear there's only one more game. I promise we're almost done.
And it's going to take up the majority of the time, probably.
No, it won't. I'm going to try.
Okay.
It's another very happy place game for me.
Yes, it is. We're talking about
the
Pokemon,
Game Boy.
Yep, the Pokemon Gen 2.
Yeah, Pokemon 2 happens this year. In Japan. It will come to the West in 2000. That's
Correct.
like a big thing for us that it was 2000, as we mentioned before, but still. This was such a big jump. I will still, what's the word? I will still defend to this day that this is the best Pokemon sequel we've ever gotten.
Yeah, so I can see that.
In terms of, like, on the same hardware, the graphical jump, in terms of content of what is in there, you doubled the amount of gyms. The playtime is so much bigger. There's so many more Pokemon. I think they added 100 new ones and so many different ways to acquire them. You can now breed Pokemon together and have eggs, which will then yield more types of Pokemon.
Yep.
The full color nature, if you're playing Crystal, which comes later, but we're talking about Gen 2, you've got animations in here too. Like, oh my goodness, you have day, night cycles. This was the coolest part of the game at first, because you turn this game on and it asks you what time it is. I don't remember any Game Boy game asking me this and it actually mattering before this point. Before it was just like a clock in Super Mario Bros. Deluxe or something like that.
Yeah.
And I turn this on and it asks what time it is, and I walk outside and it's actually nighttime. And I find owls and spiders, and I turn it on in the morning, and you find Pidgeys and Rattatas. You're like, what? Like, that is so cool.
It's like video games can do this?
Like, it felt so much more real. It was almost like turning, you know, the Tamagotchis were really popular this time.
Oh, yeah,
this was a thing that we didn't even mention. It's kind of a video game, but not really.
Yeah.
More like Digimon kind of took this over. It really is a toy. But Pokemon was like Tamagotchis in a whole world that you got to play in, and you raise your monsters inside of it. I'm trying to make sense of my nonsensical analogies here. But with
only
Pokemon,
90s
all
kids
of a sudden,
will understand that.
You're actually adding more levels of immersion.
Yes.
Where you have like the day-night cycle, and you have, I think it also had weather. Now, it wasn't, like, random everywhere you went. Like, certain places were scripted to rain. Certain places, like, were... I'm pretty sure that's the way it worked.
I think so. Now, could you dive in this one, or was that Ruby?
No, that's Ruby and Sapphire.
Okay.
No, so HMs were still a thing, but it was, for the most part, I believe all the old ones again, except Whirlpool might have been the only new one added. Waterfall might be new, too, but...
I think it was, it was Waterfall, because that's how you got some of the shiny Pokemon, I think. My Pokemon knowledge is, like, next to nil.
How do you get any guaranteed shiny? Well, there are some easy ways to get shiny Pokemon
the red
in that game.
Gyarados.
Yes, the red Gyarados is a gimme one, but also...
Wait, isn't this actually the introduction of shinies?
It is.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
I didn't even mention that. Since the game was in full color, finally, they really wanted to show this off and just, like, basically, like, give people a reason to pay attention to the color. Look at how cool this game looks in color. You gotta play Pokemon in color.
On the Game Boy Color,
On the Game Boy Color. And just to show, like, explain how big of a deal this was, and, like, how this, like, okay, we talked earlier about how Jurassic Park was, like, a big boom. Pokemon in the 90s, Pokemon, I still say, will never hit that big of an world domination that it had at this point. Because, I mean, think, like, it went to the West, and at the same time, because Japan was slowly getting one thing after another, and was working their way up to enjoying what it was.
Yeah.
But in the West, we got everything all at once, because the game came out first, and they start developing a card game, they develop an anime, and then at the same time, it all hits us at once, and it explodes.
Oh, it was a deluge of amazing stuff as a kid.
Exactly. And then Pokemon in Gen 2, now you have, like, on the same hardware. So basically nobody has an excuse that they can't really play this unless they had an original Game Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had to convince your parents, I need a color.
I need a color. Luckily for me, I started with a color.
Yes.
So that worked out. But oh my goodness. Everybody I knew also was playing with color, if not later, the like advanced SPs and stuff like that. Where that's how late people were still playing this. It's one of those games that really defined the console. And I'm going to say, even though it was so big and I adore that game, it's still not my favorite for the year. So I think that's going to be our transition. Zach, we need to start talking about favorite games for the year.
So shall I go first?
Favorite games of the year.
Okay. My favorite game of the year, out of all these, even after re-examining what we have up here, I'd still say my favorite is still Rayman 2. I can go back.
That's saying something, because this has a lot of, like, nostalgia button games this year.
Oh yeah, very much so. But just the world that Rayman sets up, the platforming, the energy that's behind the whole thing, just draws me back in, and I can easily just go back and play a couple levels and just be like, yes, this is it's one of my happy place games. What about you? What's your favorite this year, then, if it's not Pokemon Gen 2?
It's not Pokemon Gen 2, and it isn't. I'm playing it right now. It's Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Hey!
I'm sorry. And it's not like I picked this one to play at all. One, as I mentioned last time, Zach actually got this so that we can play it on the channel for us.
Yeah.
But it was like, I even looked at Pokemon and said, you know, I had so much fun with that. But this is bigger to me.
Yeah.
That's Pokemon 2. You know, I kind of split the nostalgia between those two. Like, I think Pokemon, I call it Pokemon 2, but Gold and Silver are really the definitive versions of what the Game Boy was trying to build for Pokemon.
I think so.
The definitive version of that is in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I think it's just an objectively better version of that game. Yeah. Because another thing I didn't get to mention about Gold and Silver, there's actually a lot of problems with it. Like, they had some coding issues. Things flat out don't work sometimes. And, like the Kurt balls, some of them don't do what they say they do. Some of them do worse things. Like, I'm pretty sure one of them actually, like the Moon Ball or something, like, has the opposite effect on what it's supposed to do. And then there's another one that actually is worse than a normal Pokeball because it's just coded badly.
Huh. So it's like Pokemon 1 or Pokemon Red and Blue, where a Great Ball is better than an Ultra Ball to catch Pokemons.
Stupid stuff like that.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, it was just a mess, and they tried.
However, with something like this...
Yes, something like this. This is like, from the get-go, this is something that I could sit down and still do, and I still will say to this day, this is kind of better than, in some ways, the newer games that we have. It's a completely different experience.
Not in all ways, but in probably some of the ways that count, to me at least, I think this is the better game versus something like even Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, or in some regards, Planet Coaster.
Really?
That's just me personally, though. But then again, I guess I'm getting to the point in my life where I'm like, I don't feel like learning a whole new thing just to play a new sim. I don't care. You're gonna get money because it's gonna rain.
It's raining money.
Hallelujah. Since we are, we have the inability to just choose one thing.
The inability.
The inability. Yep. I'm being generous to us today. Okay.
Yeah.
We're playing Roller Coaster Tycoon. How bad can we be?
It's happy place time. Shut up.
We also think we should be picking the most influential game, or what we feel in hindsight has been the most influential.
Right, which is something eventually we'll have to obviously stop. It doesn't make sense to pick an influential game of 2023.
Right. I mean, probably up to like what, the PS3 or 360 maybe.
We'll figure it out when we get there. Yeah. It's kind of hard to just guess.
But this year for me, I would say the most influential is Shenmue. He's like this with me on Shadow of the Colossus and with this. I don't know if it's just I just see something that he doesn't, or I just have trash taste in games. I have no idea.
And maybe it doesn't matter.
Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's my opinion and I like it, so that's all that matters. But Shenmue, because a lot of games took a lot of influence from it, especially for its open world aspect. I don't think we would have gotten stuff like Grand Theft Auto 3, or would not have been. There wouldn't have been more of like a blueprint for it if this game didn't really exist. I
think it still would have happened anyway, inevitably.
I mean, probably, but I don't know. I mean, the open world genre, as it stands, learned a lot from this game, and was shown a lot. I honestly think.
Financially, it should learn a lot more.
Well, what does it Yahtzee say? Let's all laugh at an industry that never learns anything. Yeah. We're just pumping so much money into every game almost that everything has to make billions of dollars.
I knew it. I was going to miss it.
Yeah, almost like millions and millions of sales in order to break even. So we never learned that part. But that's my influential. What about you, sir? What's your most influential?
So I actually kind of teased this earlier by talking about it as such an influential thing. I have to say it's Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
That's not only do I want to just give that away as some sort of game of the year, because a lot of people rip on this early one and they say that they really just don't like it. And I don't.
I can kind of see because it's not as feature rich and it kind of feels a little clunky in comparison to others.
Another thing that people don't get when we're talking like the original Pokemon as well.
Yeah.
You're coming from nothing.
Yeah.
You know, people don't think about that. Like a lot of so people play Pokemon Gen 4 as their first one, and then they say, "Why do people like Pokemon Gen 1 so much? You're just a Gen 1er. You don't get it." Stop. Pokemon was nothing before this point. You were playing Pokemon who has learned after generations of trying to figure out what to do. Of course, it's going to functionally understand things better.
Yeah.
That's not what we're talking about. It's more so like, and same for Super Smash Brothers. This is something that, like, this genre didn't exist. Collaborations like this didn't exist. There were no rules for this, and it still made such a cool landmark game that is still being worked on today and is now kind of overcome. Even Street Fighter 2 is the top-selling fighting video game in history.
Yeah.
Smash Brothers Ultimate I'm talking about.
Yeah, and that's, I think, including all of the different variations of Street Fighter 2. But yeah, Smash Brothers I can totally see, especially seeing as how the series just kept getting better and mostly better as the years went on.
Yeah, we gotta say mostly better.
Yeah, I mean, Ultimate is...
Oh yeah, objectively that's the best one.
Yes.
Yeah,
No
I will
question.
not argue with that one. Though we'll probably get to other Smash Brothers when we get there, but still, it's important enough that I think we gotta talk about all of them when that happens.
That's fair.
Yeah, maybe not the Wii U one, because boy, that poor Wii U.
Yeah, I never got a chance to play it on 3DS or Wii U, so I have no opinion on it whatsoever.
I played it on the Wii U and on emulation, but either way, I'm still not.
When we get there, I suppose.
If we get there, still. Anyway, oh look, guests are lost or stuck. How am I ruining my park already? I'm like half paying attention while I'm trying to talk about other video games. Let me at least finish this up. But still, this was a huge year. I honestly looked at the list of this thinking, oh, we can blast through that really quickly. This will be an easy one. I mean, it'll still be a long episode, but it's not gonna be, you know.
What have I told you before?
We're idiots.
Yeah, we are.
Is that what you were going for?
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, I've told you no matter how much we try and do,
we're idiots.
We're idiots that do not know how to shut up and keep this thing to a reasonable, respectable level.
So we're sorry about that.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We're sorry. We're all sorry. He's sorry. You're sorry.
No. I'm sorry.
You're Suri?
Oh, I'm
Suri. Who's Suri? Who are you doing?
Oh, I am Canadian Suri.
That's pretty intensely Suri.
Anyways, I think
that's all the time we have for now. Thank you guys so much for joining in this episode of Hey, It Worked! HITBOX. Thank you guys Oh, blah, 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 blah. I'm not reading at the moment. Sorry, give me one more second. There, I opened it. I did my final ride. Yay! Whee! Anyway, if you enjoyed the show, you can help us keep it alive by supporting us on Patreon with the links in the show notes and the video's description. For those of you on YouTube, remember to like this video and subscribe for more. And be sure to let us know what other videos you'd like to see and topics on the show you'd like to hear in the future. And special thanks to all of our amazing Patreon members. See ya!
See you.